Ladies and gentlemen, the play's the thing, with your host, Judy Sleed. Special guests, Tom Clavin and Danny Peary, authors of Roger Maris, baseball's reluctant hero. Now here's Judy.
Hello again. There was a movie called Hello Again. I'm in the company of two wonderful guys who wrote a book about Roger Maris. Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Hello again.
Danny.
Hello again.
Hello again. So, a lot of people know about Roger Maris and this book, so I'm sure a lot of people are buying it and reading it, and especially when he broke the record of Babe Ruth with the home runs.
Well, I think a lot of people know about Roger Maris, but they don't know the real story of Roger Maris. And Tom and I both, we could say that we learned a lot while doing 2 years of research and interviewing 130 people, and we found out a whole different view of Roger. I mean, one of our goals, both of us were Roger Maris fans, and we got to relive the 1961 season where Roger broke Babe Ruth's record. But one of our goals is to find out why he is not considered by many people the great ball player that Tom and I saw. And that was one of the endeavors of what we did in this book, and why we tried to uncover the real story. Why is Roger Maris not regarded as a great ball player by everybody, and not regarded as a hero by everybody?
And did you find out why?
We did. There was part of it, there's a couple of reasons. One is that Roger Maris did not have the kind of personality that was suited for the New York stage. And you know, there are a lot of athletes that come to New York, and a big reason why they're successful or they make a lot of money or become considered heroes is because they play well on the biggest stage in the United States for sports. And Roger was a reserved, shy guy. He wanted credit for his accomplishments, but he wasn't somebody out there to go trumpet what he had done. So that was a big reason there. And also, he had a contentious relationship with the New York press, and because of that, he wasn't getting the kind of favorable coverage that other athletes might come to expect. Certainly today, when there's a lot more control of your exposure to the press, but in those days, it was a Wild West situation, and ball players were in some ways at the mercy of the press, and they could create you and they could tear you down. And Roger had some difficulties with them.
Because at the time, Mickey Mantle was very popular.
Well, there were two reasons, there were actually more than two reasons that the press did not like Roger. And one of them, as you said, was that he was in a race to beat Babe Ruth's record with Mickey Mantle. And Mickey Mantle had been a lifelong Yankee. His whole career was the Yankees, starting in 1951, and he was the fair-haired hero of everybody in New York, including the press, including the fans. Roger came over just 2 years before from Kansas City, so he was considered an outsider, and he was written of as an outsider, and the Yankee organization treated him like an outsider. So he was having trouble there. The press, who loved Mantle, did not want Babe Ruth's record beaten to begin with, because this was a record. This was like the foundation of baseball. We all grew up. Babe Ruth's 60 home runs was the biggest record in all of sports. It would never be broken. And all of a sudden, there were two guys who had a chance to break it. And if anybody would break it, it would be their hero, Mickey Mantle. But Roger went ahead and did it. And the other reason they didn't like Roger was because he did not give him the stories they wanted. We talked to reporters, and they would tell us, you know, we made our living by getting the personal stories of all the various athletes, and Roger Maris was the biggest star in baseball and all of sports, in fact, of all of news, other than John Kennedy in 1961. And Roger was this not introverted, but he was a very private individual, and he never wanted to talk about his personal life, never wanted to talk about his family, and we can go into why he didn't want to, but he didn't give them the stories they wanted, and as the late Maury Allen told us, because he didn't give us the stories, we decided to put negative adjectives in front of his name anytime we wrote about him. And those adjectives, if you will look even into today, you'll see when anybody writes about Roger Maris, they say, well, we read these articles years ago and they use these negative adjectives. Surly was the one, distant, unfriendly, uncaring, unappreciative of baseball, uncooperative. Yeah. You'll see those same adjectives because the reporters of today read the articles from before, and it was all negative about Roger.
But besides his personality, he was a good ball player, and that's
a great ball player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we were. I was pleasantly surprised to find out, some information that during our research, and Danny was compiling statistics to put things in perspective, and to show that from 1960 to 1964, when the Yankees won 5 American League pennants in a row and 2 World Championships, I mean, they were a great ball club. They were going through one of the best streaks in all the Yankee franchise history. And during that time period, if you look at the statistics of Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle, with the exception of batting average, Mantle averaged a higher batting average, they were very, very close in home runs, RBIs, runs scored, things like that. So it was an eye-opener for me to see that while Mantle was considered the big star and the great ball player, Roger Maris was right there with him year after year after year. And in addition to that, what often gets overlooked when you talk about how good a ball player is, Roger Maris was a terrific outfielder. He was in right field most of the time, but when Mantle was injured, a lot of times Roger would move over to center. He was a very good defensive player. He saved a lot. I mean, the pitchers must have loved having Roger play behind them because he would catch up to balls. He'd never make a mistake. He would throw to the right person, the cutoff man. He would throw runners out at different bases or at home plate. That often gets overlooked, and he brought more to the table defensively than Mickey Mantle did. At that particular time, Mantle, when he was younger, was a very fast and a great outfielder. But by this point, as far as we're concerned, during those great Yankee years of the early to mid '60s, Roger was just as responsible, if not even more so, for the Yankees' success as Mickey Mantle.
So, Tom, you also write for the newspaper out here.
Yeah.
In the Hamptons.
Yeah,
in the Southampton Press.
The Southampton and East Hampton Press. I do a column in the East Hampton Press every week, and then do the occasional arts feature in the Southampton East Hampton Press arts section. And I have one this week about just came out today about the Hampton Film Festival, doing pieces on Stanley Tucci and James Franco.
That's great. And Danny, you have written several books.
Yeah, I've written way too many books. So it's over 20 now. But,
it's a living.
It's a living.
And is it also
yes,
all of them?
3 of the books I did are with Tim McCarver. I've been with Tim since 1986, the year the Mets won the pennant, and I'm the writer on the Tim McCarver show, which people get on out here on Channel 2. On either Saturday or Sunday, they move it out. We've been doing that show for about 10 years, and I've been the writer and the researcher and everything else.
So how did you two get together to write this book or any books?
Well, Danny and I first met each other, I don't know how many years ago it was. Certainly I was a lot thinner and faster. But,
yes, you were.
Yeah. But we used to be part of a group of guys that played basketball together. And I think it was Sunday mornings in Sag Harbor. And then once both of us realized that Danny ended up playing for years after I retired from basketball, but we took up golf and we started to play golf together. And I think, if I remember correctly, I was interested in doing a biography of Roger Maris, and I thought, well, I don't know anybody who knows more about baseball than Danny. I have a couple of questions I'll ask him about a couple of things to point me in the right direction. And when I did, he said, I've always wanted to do a book about Roger Maris. So we decided, well, why don't we give it a shot to collaborate, and we did, and it was it was a really interesting. We went to Fargo, North Dakota, where Roger was not born, but where he did most of his growing up years. And that was a great experience for both of us because of the people that we met and to get a real understanding of Roger as a ball player. And like I say, we're doing another collaboration. Our next book that we're actively researching right now is on the great Brooklyn Dodger player and New York Mets manager Gil Hodges.
Who also has been ignored by the voters for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
In fact, there's so many similarities between these guys who you would think have nothing in common, but one of I guess the big common element is they both deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and neither of them are there for inexplicable reasons.
Going back to his hometown, you found out that his name was not Maris, but
It was Morris,
Morris.
M-A-R-A-S, but pronounced Morris. And there were different theories on why he changed his name. One of the reasons is he changed it in 1954, so I guess he was like 20 years old at the time. And he said in the common story, the public story, that it was because people would change M-A-R-A-S and add an S to it, and when they would shout out to him. But the reason we really think this happened was because his mother, Connie, had real problems with Roger's father's family, the Morrises. And when Roger became famous, she didn't want any reflected glory going on to the Morris family, who were actually back in Minnesota, Hibbing and Latonia, Minnesota, where Roger was born and spent his first 7 years. So not only did Roger change his name, but Roger's mother changed her name, Roger's father changed the name, and his older brother changed the name. So the whole family all of a sudden became Marises. And for many years, and when Roger would be interviewed, he would say, he would never mention, he would never mention that his name had been Morris. And he would say he was born in Fargo, North Dakota. This is like the most honest person in the world when we do the research. He's like completely honest about everything, complete integrity, whatever. But in terms of what his name
is, I actually read this book, and it's very informative. And I just want to talk a little bit about steroids. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
You said it right. It's somebody who's never taken them himself. I would guess this.
And it's
We
a
were
very
not, let's
touchy
declare, we
thing.
were not on steroids when we wrote this book.
You are not?
No.
But there was a lot of talk about it, like hinting that it's not only today, but it goes way back.
It went way back, not with baseball players, but a lot of track athletes and strength athletes, who did weights, and the Olympic athletes who did that. The first we hear about ball players using steroids is probably the early 1970s, but they didn't know what they were doing. There was no systematic usage. It was just like, it was a drug culture forming, and everybody, including ball players, according to Tom House, the former Brave, is that everybody was just taking everything, including steroids, but they didn't know what it would do other than it would make them bigger. By the time Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa in 1998 were taking steroids, the guys, they were doing it with a plan. They were plotting of how to do this, and the real, I'm an A's fan, and I'm a Mark McGwire fan, and he was a nice guy, and I think he's such a nice guy that he doesn't believe that he was capable of doing anything evil or bad. But what he did was he befriended the whole Maris family. He took Roger along for the ride, and as he was befriending them, he was secretly taking steroids to beat Roger's 61 home runs. He eventually hit 70 in 1998. And the real sadness of this is the reporters of all those decades, had done such a good job of getting rid of Maris's identity, degrading everything he'd ever done. The only thing they couldn't get rid of was Roger Maris's name in the record book, where it said, Roger Maris, single-season home run record holder, 61 home runs. Mark McGwire, on steroids, while befriending the Maris family, took care of that. He erased Roger's identity. And one of the reasons we did the book is to bring it back.
Yeah, that's great. When you mentioned that they used the steroids for bodybuilding,
Yes.
well, you know, as I mentioned, that my son is in sports, and he's been ever since he was a little kid, and he's working with Bob Costas. And one in, I think it was in '69, or I forget what, no, the other way, '96. That he was doing some bodybuilding, and he heard that they do bodybuilding in sports. So he did this on his own privately, and then he went to Bob Costas and he told him confidentially that what's happening, and then Bob Costas started digging and found out that a lot of sports figures are using it. And he,
Yeah, it's so
he didn't like it.
so prevalent, you know, and
Yes.
not just baseball, but every other sport, football particularly, even going back to
But like
high
you
school
said,
students,
that
yeah.
you know they were not aware that they were doing something, or do you think they were aware that?
Well, it was
They-
secret. It was a secret. They
Oh,
knew there was something going on. It's like you know, they happened to stumble on the answers to a final exam, you know, that would get them into college or something, you know, they knew something was wrong, or they would have mentioned it, and they continued to deny it all those years. And even Mark McGwire, in admitting it at the beginning of this year, he didn't admit he was doing anything wrong. He just apologized for not admitting he took them.
Yes.
You know, it's a strange mentality of the athletes who use steroids, and I think are continuing to use steroids, obviously.
So when did this book come out?
It came out in March of this year.
This year.
Yeah, and in hardcover from Simon & Schuster. And then there is going to be a paperback version that I think is going to be released next May of 2011. And that will be, next year is the 50th anniversary of Roger Maris hitting 61 home runs in 1961.
Wow.
So we're kind of
flies.
hoping that there will be some, you know, commemoration of that, you know, from the Yankees and from baseball in general. And we'd really like to think that the combination maybe of the paperback appearing, the acknowledgement or commemoration of Roger Maris with his 50th anniversary will let give some renewed energy to the effort to get Roger Maris into the Hall of Fame. Or, you know, we're hoping it's not too late for that Roger will get his
It's never
due.
too late. Never too late for anything.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy. One thing, Roger, of course, is not alive. He died in 1985. But we're at least happy that he was given acknowledgement at the end of his life by the Yankees. The one good thing George Steinbrenner ever did was retire Roger's uniform and give him a plaque, which for the first time ever acknowledged not only his 61 home runs, which was, as I said, because of the asterisk, the so-called asterisk, which didn't really exist, but they took away the credit for Roger hitting the 61 home runs in 162 games rather than 154 games, which Babe Ruth hit in 1927, but acknowledged the single season record and also his overall career, because Roger's career was not just the 1 year, and a lot of people tell us he was a one-year wonder, and as a one-year wonder, won back-to-back MVPs, which is very peculiar.
And in the book also, since we discuss his entire life and his entire career, we also point out that when he left New York, he won a world championship and a National League pennant in 2 years with the St. Louis Cardinals. So he was somebody who every time he went to a team, he made them better. And it's a unique ball player that could do that.
People always say, well, he didn't have the stats to be in the Hall of Fame. Well, Tom mentioned earlier, he never made a mistake, and there should be a stat for never
Yeah,
making a
for
mistake.
being very smart.
Oh,
But also
no
what-
errors.
What
Ah.
also, what Tom just said, Roger Maris has a statistic, which is it on the back of baseball cards, is it in the record books, but he went to 2 third-place teams, the Yankees in 1959, they had finished third, went to the St. Louis Cardinals after '66 when they had finished third, and made them. He was the only big addition to the teams, and they both
Ended up
started
in the
winning
World Series,
championship.
yeah.
Both, and that should be a statistic.
So how is your book doing? Do you know?
Well, you know, there's a real Byzantine way that publishing, you know, does their accounting and does their statistics keeping. You know, the answer is that apparently it's done well coming out of the box. We only have information from the end of March, and our book came out in March. Now, it seemed to do well in March. We actually don't have any documentation as to how well it's done April up till the present day. So we probably won't know that till February or whatever. We do know that as far as a lot of the critics are concerned, we've gotten wonderful reviews from newspapers and internet sites all around the country, and that's been really nice. You know, we locally here, some people may have read the review by Robert Lipsyte in the East Hampton Star a few months ago, which was just a wonderful review, and we were so, you know, glad that he was the one to do. He knew Roger Maris, and he said this book captures the Roger Maris that I knew, and that was high praise from somebody who really knows what he's talking about.
Did you get any fan mail?
Yeah, we have actually. People have emailed, you know, and responded to the Roger
actually.
Maris on Facebook page, you know, have contributed to that. And yes, we have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've actually gotten the best, of course, is this is the best baseball biography I've ever read.
Yeah.
We've gotten a few
Yeah.
of those. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's different. The hard part we had, and we knew this going in, was to get past the people who have opinions of Roger Maris, negative opinions of Roger Maris, and just don't want to have to deal with them. And
Well,
oddly
if they
enough,
would read the
there are a
book,
lot of-
they would change their mind.
that was,
Yeah.
that was our goal, but it's very hard, and it's actually very hard. We've noticed in terms of people who have radio and television shows, people who don't like, we noticed that almost everybody who invited us on are Roger Maris fans.
Oh.
And then we said, hey,
Well, I'm
you know,
just a sports fan. I'm just.
well, that's good. And, you know, and the people
Yeah.
who are open to learning about Roger, but there are a lot of people who are very obstinate about this one individual, Roger
Well, I
Maris.
think
They
if they're
don't want him.
obstinate,
Yeah.
you should go on this show and just change their mind.
Well, I hope we have. But we actually challenge people to read the book,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
who don't like Roger Maris, and to
let us
have
know.
exactly the same opinion
Yeah.
going in, because you know, even for us, we both wanted him in the Hall of Fame, but our research reinforced why he should be in there.
Yeah. And you are doing this new book about
Gil Hodges.
Gil Hodges.
Yeah. That's it. You know, Gil Hodges is also a fellow who is known for being a very quiet guy but effective, a big contributor to the team, who did not make a lot of headlines necessarily because he was kind of an understated guy, went home to his family as far as we know. So very similar to Roger Maris. So we're finding there are huge differences, of course. Gil Hodges had a career in baseball after his playing days were over, and eventually was the manager of the New York Mets when they won their miraculous Miracle Met championship in 1969. So that's going to be a big difference. Roger left baseball and left it behind for the most part for a number of years before returning to the Yankees and you know, reconnecting with the New York Yankees later in his life. But the other big difference for us is that with Gil Hodges, we have been in touch with Joan Hodges, his widow, and Gil Hodges Jr. She just turned 84. And
who turned 84?
Joan Hodges, Gil Hodges' widow.
Oh, I thought you said his son.
No, but so that we're hoping is going to be very helpful to us, because in the case of the Maris family, they didn't want to participate in the writing of this book. We had to just do this basically all on our own without family cooperation. And so far, it seems like that's not going to be the case with Gil Hodges, that we will get cooperation from family members.
Which point out one of the reasons the Maris family didn't want to help us with the book is Roger would not have wanted a book about himself. He was,
He was
just
such a modest person.
Yeah.
Gil probably wouldn't have wanted it either, Gil Hodges,
But Joan wants it.
But he at least, he wrote this book sort of after the Mets won the pennant. Actually, it came out the year the Mets won the pennant in 1969. But he didn't make it autobiographical. He made it mostly, he had some stories, but it was basically about baseball itself.
Yeah,
So he's shy.
I like stories with, autobiography,
Yeah.
like how they got started and all that. That's great. And
Well, Roger wrote one supposed autobiography in which he revealed basically nothing about himself. And then in the next year, he and the same ghostwriter, Jim Ogle, wrote a really obscure book, Slugger and Wright, and about 10 people in the whole world have read this book. And it's a fictional book about a Yankee right fielder named Billy Mack, and it's very thinly veiled. It's actually Roger writing the only time ever about himself in this book, and we learned a lot about Roger's views of who he was and his career from that obscure book.
And are you using the same publisher? for the
No,
next
actually,
book?
we're not. This is Simon & Schuster, and the Gil Hodges book is going to be through NAL, which is an imprint of Penguin Books.
New American Library.
Yeah,
yes.
New American Library, an imprint of Penguin. And, it's just interesting, the nature of book publishing these days.
Sure
A generation ago, a lot of times authors would stay with a same publishing house for book after book after book. And
Yes.
I'm not saying that nobody does that anymore, but it seems to be more of a
different.
rare thing that you could do a book with a publisher, and basically when you propose your next one, it's like anybody can step in and say we want to do it. So I'm not. It's that's basically what happened here. That we really wanted to do Gil Hodges, and this publisher was not as enthusiastic as we were, but we found another one that was.
And
So
the paperback of the Roger Maris book will be
Simon & Schuster, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, they have the
Well,
rights to
I
that.
could ask you 100 more questions, but we ran out of time.
Okay.
So I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you for
On
having
my
us.
Thank you.
show,
Appreciate
and,
it.
We're looking forward to it, and we
You
enjoyed it.
always like a chance to talk about Roger Maris.
Yes, that's great. And when the next book comes out, you'll have to come back and talk about it.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, you'll see us.
Our pleasure.
So it was really a very interesting book, a lot of information. I like to know about people's lives, from beginning, where they come from, and how they became
Well, we went all the
famous.
way back before
Yes.
Roger was born to his
Czechoslovakia,
his ancestors.
Austria-Hungary, whatever it was.
Yugoslavia,
Yeah.
whatever.
But I'm from Hungary.
Hungarian Empire.
Yeah.
Was. Most everybody has a little Hungarian blood in them, I find out.
Well, they used to put it on all the Ellis Island and all the documents. They used to just put, "I'm from Austria, Hungary."
Yes.
So that's why a lot of people are Hungarian all of a sudden. But his family came from Yugoslavia before there was Yugoslavia. They were all Croatian Catholics.
Oh, it always does. It always does. I always wish